everybody. Welcome to Rogueways Road Trips. I don't even know if this is maybe the 14th one, 15th one. It sucks because they're not on YouTube anymore. So I don't know if anybody knows which one it is or if we could ever find out. But they're still on audio. They're still on the podcast somewhere in the world, and I still have them. I guess I could upload them somewhere. But this time is 2023, September, and Johnny and I, are traveling through Wyoming in this stretch that you're seeing here. I've never narrated these before, but I just got it in my head to do it, so I'm doing it. And many times you're going to see the windows on Falcor are dirty because that's what driving through Wyoming does to your windows. It's constant bugs, bug death, and bugs. But look at this gorgeousness. This is actually as we're coming up on 287. This turned out to be my favorite highway in the world. And the part that goes through Colorado is stunning. This part that goes through Wyoming is gorgeous. Sometimes it's these wide open scrublands like you see here, and sometimes there's some mountains and some hills, and then sometimes there's red rocks like Utah, and eventually we started getting into these really beautiful areas right before we hit the Tetons, and it was just mind-blowing. I didn't know, and some of these areas I had never been through because I had never taken this 287 back way up. And even though I've been to the Tetons, I came down from Yellowstone and went over into Utah. And so I just had kind of skipped this part. But it's cool. This thing here you see in the distance almost reminded me of Devil's Tower. And these hills were like the Painted Hills. I mean, these were as beautiful as the Painted Hills. And they're just out here kind of near the Wind River. You see that striation there is gorgeous. So I tried to capture as much of it as I could for you guys of just the scenery that's so beautiful as you go. Look at that. Oh my God. And I would be letting you like listen to some beautiful scenery, but this is all so far from the car. So, there's nothing really to listen to. We listened to the audio book of The Sandman, which is actually the third one, and all three have been amazing. Neil Gaiman is amazing, and the voice acting and everything. I mean, it's an audio drama, and they've recreated these stories, and it's so fun to listen to. So if you're gonna do a long road trip, I highly recommend it. It's not for kids. There we start seeing some Teton action here. My God. And again, like I said, I'd driven through the Tetons before, but I never actually went into the park itself. And this is all this mountain pass. This is technically the Grand Tetons area. It's like the national forest just outside of it. But I just didn't even know how beautiful it was out in this area. It makes sense to me now why like the highest concentration, I think, of millionaires or billionaires lives in Wyoming. I was always like, what? Why? Because Wyoming's super boring and flat. But then you drive through areas like this and you're like, yeah, no, I can see that. I can understand why you want to live here. It's exceptionally beautiful. So this was the beginning of our trip. This was just day one. And as amazing as this trip has been, I mean, we came up on the Tetons right at sunset, as you can see here. We couldn't have timed it better if we wanted to. And we just sort of ambled along our path. We didn't have any sort of hard, strict plans or anything, and here we are in this valley next to the Tetons at sunset with all these beautiful rivers and lakes and colors in the sky. It was just gorgeous. We have a little camping spot that we got down. It's kind of outside of the park actually, but it's technically national park campground. It's the best national park campground I've ever been to. I remember I went to Zion National Park campground once, and it just made me want to kill myself and everyone else as well. It was so awful, and if you've been there, you know, but it is not camping. It is putting a tent on a square of gravel next to 50,000 other squares of gravel, and everyone has their lights and their sounds and their dogs and their kids and their bullshit, and it's horrifying. It is horrifying. This was nothing like that. This was beautiful and serene. And so I really actually wanted to let you guys listen to this next part because it's just nice, peaceful forest, and the deer came up and they were right next to us, and it was a mama and her two babies, and there was the lake. This is Jenny Lake at the Grand Teton National Park. But this editor won't let me actually without canceling all the rest of the sound for everything else. So, oh well. You'll have to catch it somewhere else, maybe on TikTok or something. But yeah, it's very Pacific Northwest here to me, at least, with the mountains, the water, the lush greenery, the happy animals everywhere. These cute little babies. There was two of them, and the mom, and they're obviously very used to people, so they just did not care about us at all, which has happened to me in other national parks. And I feel very lucky, and I also hope they're doing well and not being overfed by people. I think most people are pretty good about that now. You know, there's a lot of animals who have to get euthanized because they become too dependent on humans for food, and then they start getting aggressive about it, and it's not a good thing. So there's some rules that are actually good to follow. Look at this. My God. Tetons are just stunning. Well, I didn't know until this trip, and maybe you've known your whole life, that Tetons is French for titties. So, of course, you have to make boob jokes while you're there. And we did. But it was just really lovely. We got to walk around Jenny Lake, and I had a dream right before we left that I had this confrontation, not negative, but just came face to face with a moose, which in real life would be bad, I think. I mean, you'd think, oh, it's yay, a moose. And no, it's not magical. It's probably wants to kill you, or at least get you out of its territory or defend something. Like, it's a wild animal. So, you know, in real life, you probably don't want that. But in the dream, I just had this face to face, and it was really cool. And I woke up and I was like, that was weird. And as we were here in the Tetons, people were talking about how there was moose around. And I was like, oh, maybe this is a prophetic dream. I'm going to see a moose finally. I've never seen a moose in the wild. And no, the entire trip I've still not seen a moose. So I don't know. That's just my luck. But we carried on. We actually weren't sure. We were just going north. We knew that much. But we didn't quite think about, which is funny. I mean, it's just how we were taking this trip, not really planning much. But we didn't really think about that we were about to just go straight into Yellowstone. We're like, oh, I mean, our path takes us through Yellowstone. So of course, we're going to stop in Yellowstone. This was all this fires, you know, a while back, burnt down all this area of Yellowstone, but it was still actually quite beautiful, even with all of the destruction here. And it was just also really nice weather and really beautiful days. You know, in September, it could go either way. We were lucky. We had sun and warmth and not too hot and a nice level of overcast every single day, but since we were in Yellowstone, we did stop at Old Faithful and some of the other beautiful areas of the park. And I've been here before. This was my second time seeing Old Faithful erupt. But so cool. It's actually so tall. And you can see by the tininess of the people who are in that line far up there that, what is this, 120? I don't know how many feet up in the air it shoots. And it makes the coolest designs in the water. Saw a dragon at one point. It's just super fun to watch. And also to think about how, again, you would die if you were up in that at all. It is a giant, steaming, hot geyser. And, you know, that whole land, it's a giant caldera underground, basically, right? It's like a super volcano underground. Could kill us all in a moment. And I'm like, well, I mean, I guess, like, why not live on it then? Because then you would just, like, not have to deal with the aftermath. But it's just such a weird alien, like, steaming land. And then, you know, you can't really see it here in this clip, but there's tons of buffalo just hanging out next to these steaming holes in the ground. There's some of them. And they're just very cool. And we only had one wildlife traffic jam. And it was genuinely like the buffalo were crossing the road, so nobody could have gone. It wasn't a stop and take pictures sort of thing. But it was really nice. And this whole back way out, we went from, through West Yellowstone was the exit we took, and we went up kind of northwest from there. And that area is also so gorgeous. Again, probably a lot of like millionaires and pretty wealthy people, but a lot of poverty too. I mean, everywhere is like that. The sky just was stunning the whole time. Every day, every morning, every night. We were just very, very blessed in this mid-September journey. This looks like a photo, but I'm just being very still and looking at the sky. During the sunset that night, we had made it to Missouri Headwaters State Park, which was also really funny because we had been there before and seen this exact teepee and thought, that's disgusting. People sleep in this. Not because teepees are disgusting, but because it looks kind of sketch. And then this was the only spot left, so we took the teepee spot because we sleep in the van anyway. We have a tent if we want to sleep outside, and but the van Falkor is super comfortable. But we had to at least peek in, and yeah, it smells like mold and feet. So I don't know. I think it's a really fun idea, but maybe like just consider not sleeping in the teepee if you ever go to Missouri Headwaters. Otherwise, it's a beautiful park. Doesn't have any running water, so be warned. It's just pit toilets. And then we continued to head west. We were headed to Idaho. We're meeting my family for a sort of little family reunion yearly meetup. We try to go to a cabin or somewhere and just camp or hang out together for a few days. So this area of Montana is also my favorite. I grew up in Montana in this western part of the state in the Rockies and around that area in Flathead Valley, and it sounds luxurious, but we were dirt poor. It is so weird now to go and just see how everything actually is it's very wealthy. There's a lot of wealthy people here. And that was not our experience there, but just the drive even through the Rockies has all of these stunning, beautiful mountains. I love driving through this area. And hopefully I'll end up living there again. This would be a great place to buy property when I return to that point in my life where buying property is the thing to do. And, if BlackRock hasn't bought it all, if Vanguard hasn't bought, if China doesn't own it all, if Bill Gates doesn't own it all, if Bill Gates hasn't leveled the forests and buried the trees underground because for some reason that's going to save the world, then maybe I'll live somewhere like this. Maybe, if we're all very lucky. That's the timeline we're on, right? That's the timeline we're on. The one where we don't have our forests cut down by psychopaths. And speaking of which, there was no smoke during this entire trip too, which was really cool. I know they've been burning a lot of other places in the world, but they seem to have given us a break. Oh, and here we finally get to the 50,000 silver dollar motel. When I was a kid, we would come here every single summer, and we come back to Montana after we moved to Washington. And this was one of our pit stops, but it was the 10,000 silver dollar hotel then, and now it's the 50,000. I actually asked the clerk, did you go down from 100,000 or up from 10,000? Because I know it was a 1 at least. And he said, no, we went up to 50. So they actually have 50,000 silver dollars there. It was nice to stop and have some nostalgia for this place I went to every summer as a kid. We went back to visit family and friends and grandparents and stuff. So that was cool. And then we carried on, and you're basically in Idaho at this point. Idaho is also beautiful, especially northern Idaho. Southern Idaho too in different ways, but northern is that evergreen forests that are thicker, a lot more lakes and rivers. And here we are driving around. It's Lake Coeur d'Alene, but it has a lot of these little offshoots that have different names, like Black Lake and Medicine Lake and Lake Chatcolet and all of these French names because the French were in this area. Lots of native people in this area. There's a reservation there. And here's the cabin we rented from the state park right on the lake. Way cheaper than you'd think. And we got to hang out here for the next many days, and sunsets. This was actually sunrises, so that was the east. And then it would just go across the lake and we would see the sunset on the other side in the west. Every day, we just got to see both. We had this dock we had access to. There's some private cabins here, and they've got their boats moored up there. One lady was just so nice and let us borrow her kayaks. I mean, how amazing is that? Really beautiful. We got to go kayaking every day with the kids, the grandma, out on the lake. It was nice and peaceful. We had great weather. It's just lovely. It's resetting to be out in nature and just not have to ever rush or worry. We got all these beautiful lotus flowers. There's all the lily pads and pink lotus flowers everywhere in this marsh. Really beautiful. We're so lucky. And there was turtles and there was pelicans. I didn't see the turtles, but they were there. There was an osprey we saw every single night catching fish, and often in the morning catching fish. We saw a beaver dam. I saw a tiny like ferret creature I've never seen before. We saw these wild turkeys down in the park, and I'm not from places where wild turkeys hang out usually, so it was pretty surprising to me. But there they were, and I'd always heard how much of assholes they were, so I kept my distance, but they seemed to think I was an asshole and kept their distance. So I think we had a mutual respect. We had an understanding. And here is the sunrise again. And I always, in every trip so far, I've traced my route, my major trips, not every trip, because when I just go home, it's not always a road trip of it like this time was, but here I am going to show you my route again. And I'm not going to show you my route back because I'm actually recording this while we're on our way back, and so I'm not exactly sure which way we might go, but we'll get this the right way. And then we'll show you from Colorado Springs, the center of all things. Going up 287, cuts across up into Wyoming. It actually stays 287. We were on 70 for a second, or 80 rather. 287 up to Tetons, Yellowstone, up to 90, over to almost Coeur d'Alene, and then just down to the bottom of Coeur d'Alene. And we're lucky too, this park is really well established. They've got lots of trails, and this was a little discovery boardwalk through the marshland. So the kids got to go out and see red-winged blackbirds and dragonflies and cattails and all the good stuff. And so it is a stage 3 lake. It is dying. Here was a little squirrel who wanted to come into our front sitting room, which was so nice to have. It was all screened in. He was finding crumbs that the kids had left, so hello, little squirrel friend. Please, what's ours is yours. He was not scared. And there's another bridge nearby in the state park where you can go camp for even cheaper. It's a very nice campground. It's good bathrooms, good running water, and it has this bridge out to the marsh. Just really pretty. Again, these were some of the clips I was going to hope to just let you have some peaceful nature sounds and enjoy this, but that is not how this editor works anymore. So, or I don't know what I'm doing, but that could be. But as we went, we actually found this really cool. It was so weird. This is an auto museum, which obviously is awesome. Look at these. It started in like 1886 was the oldest car they had in here. And I swear they had like most makes and many models from every year from there on out. Just crazy. This one was the electric car. One of the first electric cars that had a range of 50 miles. This is in like, well, we'll see in a second because I know I got some of the placard, but it was called like the City Club, I think it was. Yeah, City Car, 1974. Not even the first electric car, just an early electric car, and that just, I guess, died off. This had 400 to 600 charges on the battery. I wonder what they're doing now. Probably not much different. And this one was really cool too because, you know, if you know Falkor, you know Falkor is a Ford Econoline. That's what I cruise around in. And this is Falcon, which is funny because Johnny always calls Falkor Falcon. And it's a Ford Econoline from 1963. So this is the distant cousin of Falkor. His name is Falcon. That was fun. Fun to see Falkor's cousin. We wonder if that's an ice box in the middle there. It would be super convenient, but who knows. And then in the same museum, it was a prison museum. So it was just so weird. So we went to the prison museum and Johnny asked me, are you feeling anything like, you know, energy wise? And I was like, no, just a lot of tension, you know, like there's some angst and some grief caught up with it. And it was right about here in the prison where he asked me that, and I was talking about that, feeling that. And right then we walked into the area where there had been this prison riot. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And as we were walking, I was just trying to kind of tune in. And there was someone there who was talking to me. And I believe his name was, I had it earlier. It was, God, I think it was like Umberto. And it was Italian. And he said he was Italian. And I was like, well, what are you doing here still? And he's like, I mean, I'm stuck here. And I was like, no, you're not. I was like, just go into the light. He's like, it's not that easy. I was like, oh, it is. And I called in some assistance and he was like, oh, it is that easy. I was like, yeah. So that was kind of cool. And then we got to this part and there's actually a solitary confinement area. And again, I didn't really think about it, and I walked into it, and I almost vomited instantly. Like, it hit hard and suddenly, and then I started bawling instantly, and I had to go back outside and take my shoes off and ground. And it dissipated, but, you know, the normal prison feeling was more like a lot of the energy was like, yeah, you know, we did the crime, we do the time. Like, there was some level of responsibility. There were some people who were like, no, it wasn't. This isn't fair. This isn't right. But it wasn't a lot of that. That's always nice. It's not like super demonic. But that solitary area was intense. It was really, really intense. I just think it's so cruel. I don't think anybody ever deserves that. I'm just like, you know, just kill them. What's the point of this? Really, it's just torture. But they get away with it. But, you know, they had workout areas and a baseball field and this theater. This is a theater. Someone built them a theater. So, I mean, it wasn't a horrible prison. And it's like turn of the century. But that's it. That was a trip. That was coming back from Idaho. We just happened upon that. We've just been cruising along. It's beautiful. We made it to Bozeman. Bozeman is a little richy rich. You can see some Tartaria there in the background. This is the downtown sort of area. One of the best burgers of my life. And now we're going home. So I hope you guys enjoy. I love you all. And we'll return to normal scheduling now.
I find that my mind's out of line, similar to preschoolers with crayons, coloring books and note paper with automatic writing seance. Call me the Jackson Pollock thought antimatter splatter. Record thoughts dropped, ensuring that I exist in the hereafter. Don't know if I'm in the right time or dimension at the moment. I just know I can't stay sheltered forever like the homeless. Lose focus to find it melting time with Salvador's clocks. On a hell of a walk, screaming with demons, telling them off. Melon all slosh, trying to drench my ways with substances. No way out, seeing horrors I never wished to witness, but I'm bumming it, abandoned by the mothership, to learn me a lesson itself. Pissing on opportunities found in the hands that I was dealt. Fuck playing with a full deck. I was taught to protect my neck, learning less in school than I did from my stereo cassette deck. I'm known to catch wreck to escape harsh realities. I'm probably not listening right now, so don't worry about what you're telling me.
I've been seeing stuff, like a lot of really messed up stuff. Experiencing what is commonly called a daylight hallucination. I've been seeing stuff,
is a terrible thing, so watch me waste it. Drenched in insanity, bottled up so you can taste it. Faces, straight jackets for being myself.
Now that's crazy.
Expressing what I know is my wealth.
Now they hate me.
The mind is a terrible thing, so watch me waste it. Drenched in insanity, bottled up so you can taste it. Faces, straight jackets for being
Now
myself.
that's crazy.
Expressing what I know is my wealth.
Now they hate me.
Daylight, hallucinations, more pure than the TV junk they pump. Try to fill me full of bullshit so I don't question the punks. Strengthening mentality, trying to overcome the visions. Uncontrollable vibrations, tasting new dimensions. Similar to Thizzer, spitting the soul out of body. Waltzing on thin air, rule of thought won't even stop me. Astral planes and reality mixing, I'm friends with shadow people. Ignoring that they study me like nosy neighbors through peoples. Keep most of this to myself so you don't question my head. Feel like that Sixth Sense kid that be seeing the dead. Understanding past life flashbacks is a guide for the future. Not blinded by technology, TV, news, or computers. Strange as a triangular formation near Bermuda. Remade a mystery similar to the grassy knoll shooter. Grasping something larger than my self-intuition by only means of sight. Grab flight from metaphysical knowledge. Hold electric kites, eclectic might to open chakras. To flow creative thinking. You can't take what I'm making. It's my own godlike situation. Observe my own creation. If you see it, you'll probably back it. But when explained to sheeple, they want to see me locked up in straight jackets.
I've been seeing stuff. Like a lot of really messed up stuff.
Experiencing what is commonly called a daylight hallucination.